In this lesson, guys, we're going to be covering metric conversions. So we'll be talking about how to identify the base units of measurements and how to convert between these units of measurement.
What is chemistry? The study of matter and the changes it undergoes. Changes can be either physical or chemical, but matter is described as anything that has mass, so has some sort of weight to it, and takes up space and can be measured.
These are some examples of the types of matter that we'll be talking about in class. For example, solids, liquids, and gases. They are all around us. They're either soft or hard, they're wet, or they're the stuff that floats in the air that we cannot see.
So qualitative measurements are observational descriptions that are non-mathematical. So odorless, shiny, rusty, dense, things like that. Quantitative measurements are the ones that utilize the numbers. So when you actually have to measure something. So like quantity.
We're going to be talking about the metric system, which is going to be our unique type of measurements that allow scientists, chefs, mechanics, construction workers all over the globe to communicate with the correct measurements. One famous example of the metric system not working was the fact that the International Space Station got parts from America, and the American or the imperial system, those parts were not the same size or diameter that were required because the International Space Station is built on the metric system. So for example, if you guys did not know this, the United States is only one of 3 countries in the entire world that has not adopted the metric system. That means something about 280 odd million people are using this old system, while another 7,356,000,000 blah 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 other people on the planet use the metric system, which is kind of weird. So think about that, guys. We're not actually that unique as Americans. We're actually kind of behind on this system of measurements.
And if you've ever traveled outside of the United States, you would have recognized this right away. So notice there are no inches, miles, feet, pounds when you look on reference table D, which is on the first page of your reference tables. We will not be using any of those measurements, including Fahrenheit. So most common base units are grams, liters, meters, which you probably have heard of, mole, which is not just a fuzzy animal, Kelvin, which is going to take the place of Fahrenheit, atomic mass unit, molarity, parts per million, joule, which is like calories, and Pascal.
So when we're talking about the metric unit, we're also going to be looking at table C on your reference table. And we're going to be talking about prefixes. So prefix is an affix which is placed before the stem of a word. Adding it to the beginning of one word changes it into another word. One common example that we all know is if you take the prefix un and you add it to the word happy, it makes the word unhappy, or the opposite of happiness. So when we are looking at reference table C, we're going to be noticing that there is no spot for our base unit. So right now on your reference table, I need you guys to write down 10 to the 0 is a base unit. Underneath the word base unit with this arrow, I want you to write down meter, liter, gram. You'll notice that we have the prefix kilo. Kilo has a factor of 10 to the 3rd power. It's the only positive factor on table C. Kilos are going to be large measurements. So for example, a kilometer is 0.62 miles, but we will not be using miles in this class. Kilometer is also 1,000 meters, or a kilogram is 1,000 grams. Everything beneath our base unit line, we call these from the deci to the picos. These are going to be very, very, very small units of measure. For example, 1 milligram is 0.001 grams, and 1 picoliter is 0.0000000000001 liters. Wow.
Sounded like you were a broken record.
Yeah, I was on loop. So looking at our metric ruler, you'll notice here, a centimeter is going to be the distance between the actual numbers. But when we talk about millimeters, those are going to be the little lines that are in between. So if you notice, in between a centimeter, there are 10 millimeters. So that means on this ruler, there are 12 centimeters, or there are about 125 millimeters.
Right, and each millimeter counts for 0.1 centimeters. So turning the table C on its side is the easiest way to convert different prefixes. So you move your decimal based on the original prefix to the new prefix. So for example, 400 liters, if you wanted to change it to kiloliters, you start at the base unit, which is 10 to the 0, which is right there where the red arrow is. You find kilo, and then you go from 10 to the 0 to 10 to the 3. You move the decimal 3 places because you went from 0 to 3.
And you're also noticing when you turn the table on the side, you're physically moving it to the left. So that's why when you're going to take that decimal at the end of the 400 and you move it 3 places to the left.
So method can be used for any small prefix moving to a larger prefix and vice versa. So here's a new example, 232 millimeters to nanometers.
Now we're noticing we're going from a small unit to an even smaller unit. So before you do that, what's the first thing we should do?
Find millimeters.
Okay, so we're starting at 10 to the negative 3. There we go. What direction are we going if we're going from milli to nano?
Well, nano's to the right of milli, so we're going to move to the right.
Okay, so you're noticing now you're going from 10 to the negative 3 to 10 to the negative 9.
So it's a difference of 6.
Okay, and because milli and nano, you're going to the right, you're going to be moving the decimal to the right.
Right, so our new number is going to be...
Hold on, is it going to be a big number or a small number?
Well, if you're moving it to the right, it's going to be more zeros.
More zeros. So technically...
So a large number.
It's going to be huge.
Right, so it's going to be 232 and then 0000000.
Or 232 million nanometers.
Right. Just know that every time you move the decimal, you add a 0 when it's becoming a bigger number.
And this method can be used for any larger prefix becoming a smaller prefix.